and welcome to Lily High on Life. Our special guest today is Sion Meltzer. Sion, welcome to Lily High on Life.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and inviting me over. Thank you.
I am really looking forward to our interview because I got you to fill in a little information about things that you've done in the past that I had absolutely no idea about.
The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, yeah. No, The Secret Life of Sion Meltzer, exactly.
And this is one of the reasons I do Lily High on Life, because you go through the day and you meet people throughout the day, and just by looking at them or interacting with them, you've got no idea what their lives are really like now or before.
Well, I could say yes, it's fairly mundane and we just get on with things, but no, it's an interesting history and interesting circumstance today. I work as a video producer, cameraman, editor, producer, and I mainly do corporate work, and I'm doing that currently.
Now, I shouldn't assume anything, so let me just ask the question. So this work is all based on stuff you've done in the past, and people are still calling you up and asking you to do stuff?
Yeah, well, you've got to reinvent yourself regularly, and these days it's a post-COVID challenge of maintaining the client base of what I had prior. But given all that aside, no, it's work. I do video work, so predominantly in the corporate sphere. So
what kind of companies?
So that big corporate companies with CEOs or managing directors or general managers that need to be interviewed, tell a story, promotion of a new product, a new factory, a new process, storytelling of the business, the history of the business. For instance, late last year, I did some work for Iron Man 4x4, which is a company owned by Tom Jacobs. He has a very big accessories business in the 4x4 sphere. He'd never made history of the company, so I did history of the company video for him last year, and his son Samuel. But anything that comes up, I'll happy to grab. Yesterday I was doing a small job for an insurance firm, just promoting themselves.
And do you find that you're working full-time, part-time, now that we're out of lockdown?
Well, to be 100% honest, it's less than part-time at the moment. Work is not as fluid as it was.
But you also get to pick and choose what you want to do.
Well, I can, yeah. But look, it's not too depressing. It's just a temporary hiccup, I think, and it's a matter of how I promote myself and the work that I want to do.
How do you promote yourself?
Well, it's
nowadays?
website, it's word of mouth predominantly, it's referral predominantly. Occasionally I'll try some social media thing, but it doesn't work for me.
So you actually, all somebody needs to know is that they want to make some kind of video production,
yes.
And you will arrange everything
yes.
from soup and nuts with whatever they need for the...
Correct. And years ago I used to do lots of function videos. I did bar mitzvah videos, bat mitzvah videos, 21st school videos, all that sort of stuff. Whether I need to go back to that, well, yes, I do from an income point of view, but I don't really want to from a mental point of view. I at one stage I did most videos for most bar mitzvahs around town, and they weren't the function per se; they were videos to be shown on the night. So,
right.
and what they weren't photo essays. I went out of my way to do something different. Make short stories with kids, Raiders of the Lost Ark, or family spoofs with the pet dog, driving cars, all sorts of weird and wacky things. It was fun. It was great, and did that sort of stuff for years.
You've got to have fun. How did you get into it?
Well, how did I get into it? My father was in advertising back in the 60s, and I was often dragged off to a shoot as an extra.
Okay.
As an unpaid extra. And I can vividly remember two ads that I got involved with. There was the 1964 Ford campaign and a dog food called Lucky Dog, I think, or something like that, where I was an extra. and I would be the kid playing with the dog. I would be the kid sitting in the back seat of the car, and I got excited by that stuff, and then they went to edit it, and I got to sit in as a kid on the editing side of things, and just found myself drawing on the back of 16mm negative film and creating shapes and stuff and winding it through the machine and seeing what it looked like, all that sort of stuff. And I got enthusiastic for it. My brother also caught the bug, and he was into photography. So between the two of us, we were in the part of this family that was in advertising, so to speak.
So back in those days, advertising was predominantly video production, or it also included some of the other things like newspaper ads?
It was mainly film production. It was entirely film production. Dad had a film company, made a lot of TV commercials for Ford and General Motors and that sort of stuff. And you just get, you get excited by that sort of thing, and you think it's glamorous, but hey, the truth is that it isn't.
Fun.
Well, it is fun if it works.
Yes.
Yeah. And as a kid, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, it was exciting. And then I finished school. I wasn't very academic. I didn't do sciences. They didn't want to send me off to do medicine or law. But I found myself at Paran Tech for a year in 1973 doing accounting. What a waste of time that was. And then I found myself in 1974 at La Trobe Uni doing an arts degree. What a waste of time that was.
Yes, I've got a BA from Melbourne University, which I also say what a waste of time that was.
But I did persevere, and I had 4 or 5 fantastic years at La Trobe. And I ended up doing a music degree there.
Oh wow!
BA
What did
music.
you play?
Well, the good thing about this particular course at that time was it wasn't a performance-based degree. It was more to do with new technologies. They introduced a brand new course at La Trobe to do with computers and experimentation and audio recording and mixing and all that sort of stuff. It was a pioneering course, but I think it was the first in Australia of its type, and I absolutely loved it. And I before graduating, I got offered a job at Channel 7. I'll talk about that a bit later, but I got offered a job at Channel 7, so I had the dilemma to leave university with a piece of paper or take this job at Channel 7. I took the job at Channel 7.
Smart move.
Well, yes and no. Yeah, no, it was. It definitely was. And I ended up doing a sound recording for TV shows back in the days when it was on film and tape recorders for the audio.
Yes.
And you had to sync the two together with a clapperboard and the film my first job was with the legendary Mike Willesee as a sound recordist in the Melbourne office for the Willesee at 7 show.
Wow.
So we looked
That's iconic.
And I was 19, maybe 20, and it was fantastic because they gave me this opportunity. I rose to the task and I managed to master the technology, the equipment. Basically, it was thrown at me and said, "You can do this." I said, "Yeah." They gave me 2 weeks to prove myself, and I did. And I got the job there full time. And we looked after Victoria, Tasmania, South Australia, and Western Australia, and travelling all the time.
So you were working on the Mike Willesee show, which was a huge deal at the time. Yeah. What was the reaction from your friends and people that had gone off to uni and done boring things?
Well, everybody was in awe of this guy working on a famous television show. But you know what? It was a routine. It was 9 to 5 or 9 to 9, whatever the times were. But it was exciting, and every day was different. Most of the week, the Melbourne office had to produce 1 show per day, or one story per day. Mm-hmm. That could have been just a simple interview, or it could have been something more complex to do with refugees or crooked doctors or rotten car salesmen or whatever.
Did you schlep your brother along to this?
No, he was living. My brother was living in London at the time. He was squatting over in London doing photography, and then he went to New York and lived there for about 10 years.
So you really had a more exciting type Jewish family life than most people.
Well, the Jewish family side of things was through my mum's side. My late grandmother Zina Saharia, lovely woman from Poland, and they were refugees from Poland in '39. They managed to get out before Bialystok was closed, and they got to Australia.
Well, looking back, do you see that had an impact on your life? The fact that they did manage to
well,
escape?
because I had the Jewish side predominantly through my mum's side, and my father's side was much more Anglo-Saxon, South African, not very religious. We would have roast lamb lunches on Sundays, and not really observant of the holidays and that sort of stuff. So that was sort of the non-Jewish side. Yet still, I had a bar mitzvah, a temple beth, and still did all that.
Do you speak any Yiddish at home?
On my mum's side, they spoke Yiddish. My grandmother only spoke Yiddish and Polish, and not sure about Hebrew. But
did you go to any of the youth movements?
Yes. They sent me off to Sunday school, and they sent me off to. There was one in Elwood that they dragged me off to, which I don't have very fond memories of, I'm afraid.
Okay. Lots of people don't, but actually I do. I went to all of them, and I really enjoyed it, but I can understand why if you were forced to go.
Yeah. Didn't really make good friendships there. My friendships through life were mainly from school, and I had a mixed bag of fruit. I had a close friend who's now passed away, but he was Yugoslav family. So I was in their family. He was the only child, and I was always there at their house. So I had a smackful of the Yugoslav culture, Croatian, and the food and all that. And Branko would have come to our house to enjoy the Jewish side of things. I went to his house to do the Croatian and Serbian side of things, and so I had a good mixed fruit there. And then when I went to university, I befriended an Egyptian guy, Rafiq, and got to know. He was a lovely man, and got to know him and his family very well, and a lot of non-Jewish kids, of course, young men, I suppose, and ladies, just my whole life has been this mixture of cultures.
And just going back to your grandmother for a little while, do you remember your grandfather as well? Or?
No, both my grandfathers passed away before I was born. So they passed away in 54, 55. I was born in 55.
And what do you remember about your grandmother? Because your eyes actually sparkle when you talk about her.
She was a fantastic lady. Well, I was often dumped there, as you do. Mum worked in the city, Dad worked, whatever. He was always away. And I was dumped at my grandmother's, often slept there, of course. I can remember that vividly. There was a smell, there was a mothball smell.
Yes.
But I knew where the chocolates were hidden in the cupboard. And she had one of those old-fashioned fridges, old-fashioned stoves. Used to make the best biscuits. Don't know how she made biscuits out of a stove with a stove like that. Dragging me to the Ackland Street fish market, as you did.
Such wonderful memories.
Yeah, fantastic.
Have you been back to Ackland Street recently?
Oh,
Shocking.
It's bereft of anything. They need to build the fish market again.
Bring
back some character. It's terrible what they've done.
The Jewish Mafia used to run that on a Sunday morning. Yeah. They upstairs card games. I used to go to raise money for different things as a child. Yeah.
So Mum and Nan lived in Tennyson Street, Elwood, in an apartment there, or a flat as you call them, just around the corner from the gardens. And I was always forced to be with my two cousins, Terry and Robin. The three of us used to always play together. Yeah.
Really nice.
It was close knit with on the female side, because my grandmother came to Australia with her two sisters. So from that, three families evolved.
Yeah.
And we were always together, wherever we went, with the families.
They're the best memories, when families were that close, because nowadays it just doesn't happen that much for a bunch of reasons, but it's so special to have those memories from when you were young.
Absolutely.
And now also you're a Grossermacher with the JR, which is the only Jewish radio station in Victoria. And you're making huge changes and expanding it. How did that happen?
A potted history of JR is that it came about around 8-9 years ago. from the remnants of a previous incantation called Lion FM. Unfortunately, the Lion FM people lost the license, so we also lost the frequency. So a group of us got together, myself, Robert Bonchek, and one or two others who aren't there anymore, decided that we need to keep the radio license. We need a Jewish radio station in Melbourne. There wasn't one at that station.
Good on you, kol hakavod.
Yeah, and we managed to secure a frequency 87.8 on the FM dial. That's a frequency.
But that's not it anymore.
No. But I'll tell you why. We rented that frequency.
We're 88.
Yeah. Now,
88
well, the good
FM.
news is that we bought 88. And J-Air has the asset of that license number now, 88 FM.
Awesome.
So that's a value asset. It's a valuable asset for us. It cost us money which we raised to purchase it. So it's 88, gives a very strong signal, and we have our studios in St Kilda Road, near Alma Road. We've built 3 purpose-built studios, and the transmission point, which is better, is at Chadstone. So it's on the roof of the Chadstone Shopping Centre, beaming out in the direction of Caulfield.
So because of your production experience and everything, you were aware that a radio station was a great idea, and I'm assuming that it was from your mother and your Jewish grandmother and your Jewish sort of interactions.
Yes and no. I mean, I had helped to create a radio station at school. I had helped to create La Trobe University's first radio station. So for some reason, in the back of my brain, there's something to do with radio there. I don't know what it is. Maybe there was a disc jockey in Poland back in 1920 that used to play Chopin. I don't know, and I just love the whole process and discipline of radio, and to create shows that people want to listen to.
Did you find Robert Bonchek, or did he
No,
find
he found
you?
me. Well, we actually had crossed paths a few years previous when he was in audio, selling audio hardware, and I had bought some headphones and other things from him, and just got to know him that way. Yeah, and then he approached me to be on the committee for the station, and we built it from there.
Very cool. And look, what you've got at the moment is fabulous. Even when there were no live broadcasts, the music that you had, whoever did the music and everything for you, was just fabulous.
Yeah, the music curation is rather difficult. You've got to strike a balance. We play a lot of Hebrew music, but a mixture, but mainly Jewish theme music, and it's. We have 26, 28 regular weekly shows presented by that amount of people. Anything from politics to music to interview shows like yours, a current affairs show, or current events show, I should say. And some very good professional, semi-professional radio people, and a lot of amateurs.
Yeah.
But the whole purpose of the station is to do it... to provide the facility for those that want to have a show. So
which is excellent.
We don't say no. People need training. I mean, that's the basic thing, and it's not a daunting task. The problem with problem and also not a problem is that what we've been living through with COVID this last few years, because people haven't been coming to the studio, and they've been doing it at home like you are doing now. But as long as we maintain decent recording devices and the file is edited correctly and presented correctly, it can go to air, and hopefully it's good enough to be transmitted.
And this new studio is just fabulous. They look terrific, and they're comfortable, and eventually, everything will be done from there. Although people found remote working on everything, so.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame because, build it and they will come. In other words, we've built it and they're not coming.
But now the radio station needs to go not only across the whole of Victoria, but also
that's the beauty
nationally.
What's the beauty of the internet? I mean, we're at www.whatever we are, j-air.com.au.
j-air.com.au.
So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Mongolia, Tel Aviv, New York, whatever, you can listen to the station.
Absolutely.
And it gives the Australian Jewish community perspective on what's going on in
Which
the
is
world.
fabulous.
Yeah.
And I love the fact you've got Hebrew, you've got Yiddish, you've got Russian.
Yes. We've got all those different shows. Yiddish, yes, 3 or 4 shows. The Russian show is very popular on Monday nights, presented by a chap called Roman Merkus. There's a sports show on Tuesday nights. There's a Nothing Right show, Nothing Left show. All those sorts of things are there. And hopefully more. We want to attract more people to do shows. But the challenge for us is getting younger people to do shows. The whole thing has sort of changed. Telephones with recording telephones and social media and all that stuff, and technology has changed the way radio works and operates.
But you just need to tell them that they can live stream on Facebook or something, and that'll...
I think so.
They're about what you see.
But it's incredibly important. Look at the rubbish we're going through at the moment with the Melbourne University Student Union and the BDS and the anti-Israel, the anti-Zionism stuff.
At a university.
And, we need radio to expose that. It's all very well reading about it on Facebook, but it's, you want to see it, you want to hear stories, and we'll give the right of reply to anybody, but that's what radio is about,
Absolutely.
But they don't want to come on and argue the cause. So
and there's really, in Yiddish they say it's a Meshiggene Welt.
Yeah.
Today it's more Meshiggene than ever, but in a very serious way. And radio is something that is really easy and immediate that you can use as a tool.
Yeah.
So we'll do politics on another interview. But you actually had some really amazing experiences through your production work. Lily High on Life is really all about feeling better. It's about the way you feel and how do I feel better. So one of the places it's supposed to be the happiest place on earth is a tiny little place called Bhutan.
Mum's laughing in the background.
Mum's laughing in the background. She's actually reading about Mel Brooks.
Oh, right.
So God bless.
What a genius.
To be able to laugh out loud, and Mel Brooks is amazing. But Bhutan is this amazing
let
place.
me tell you how lucky. I've back in about 86, I fell in with a production company that was doing a lot of documentaries out of Australia. And I became the preferred sound recordist, which pretty lucky, and I worked with a few cameramen that had the gig. And one of the countries that we did visit was Bhutan, and the reason for that, it was a 6-part documentary called The Merchants of the Merchants of Asia, something like that. Anyway, one of the locations was Bhutan. And Land of the Dragons, that's what it was called, Bhutan Land of the Dragons. It was 4 1-hours for television, made by a company called Nomad Films, based in Paran. I was lucky. I was on the first Western film crew ever allowed into the country, and we got to the capital city, Paro or wherever it is, and we travelled through Bhutan for 2 weeks and went up into the mountains, and got as high as 18,000 feet one afternoon. Yeah.
What can you tell us about Bhutan back in '84?
Well, it was an incredible experience to visit these monasteries where monks were living the life they'd lived for generation upon generation upon generation. Everything was still a lot of yak herders and horse and carts and mules, not many vehicles.
Was it the first third world type country you'd been to?
I think it was a bit better than the third world. I had been to India. We had to go to India and through India to get to Bhutan. Well, India was a real eye opener. We went to Calcutta in 1984, and my goodness, what a place to visit. That was an eye-opener. And then we've got an internal Indian Airlines flight. I'm glad I'm here today to talk about it. And then we drove for about 2 days to get into Bhutan through the most... You can imagine those roads on sides of cliffs. Well, that's what it was. And there was no airlines direct to Bhutan in those days. So it was incredible.
Was there a language barrier? Could you actually speak to the people?
Well, I'm not sure what language they spoke. I don't know what Bhutanese. We had English translators, and we met a lot of scholarly people who spoke English because they had been to England to university or America or whatever. But yeah, it was. I don't know if it was promoted as the happiest place on earth back then. That seems to have happened since, but it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, more about the state of mind of the people and their teachings.
They had a terrible incident there though back in the 90s or 2000s where somebody killed a lot of people in the royal family with a gun. But anyway, that's another story.
Not too happy.
No, it wasn't too happy. Yeah.
It's, were you ever tempted to do anything else or try anything else, or you just found your honeypot and you were happy to stay?
Well, I was lucky because I did many years as a freelancer. So I worked for a lot of different TV shows in Melbourne and Sydney. And one of the more successful ones, as everybody knows, is 60 Minutes. So I worked for them as a freelance.
That's when they were a normal company.
Yeah, that's a freelance sound recordist, and I got to know Jana Vent and Ray Martin very well.
She doesn't age, that woman.
Amazing. Nor does Ray. He's pretty amazing. So I got to work with them, and I was freelance. So one side story is that at the same time I'd met my now wife Rosie, who I've been married to for 37 years.
That really is a wow in this day and age.
On the day of our engagement party, which was held at her parents' place in Dandenong Road, I received a phone call from the production manager of 60 Minutes, and he says to me, "Sorry to interrupt your engagement party, but you know that job you were seeking in Sydney? How would you like it?"
Wow!
To come and work for us full time.
And Rosie said,
"No." What do you think she'd say? Because basically back then it was, I would never have been home. We would have to relocate from Melbourne, uproot her with all her friends and family and whatever, and then discover that I'm away most of the year for work.
Anyway.
Yeah, because it was like 40 weeks of travel. That's how much travel they did.
And it was too late to postpone the engagement.
Yeah. So I wasn't too happy being offered the job. However, I still freelanced for them for many years after. Then
But you got to think of it as one of those bashert things, because if they'd offered it to you before, you would have said yes, and your whole life would have been different. So you got to just look at it as a good thing and a bashert thing. Yeah,
I ended up. From that, I got involved with a company in Fitzroy called. I've forgotten what they're called, but we ended up building an edit suite, and we created a business called The Facility, which was a post-production house, and that was based in Port Melbourne for about 6 years. I ended up becoming the general manager of that. After about 8 years, I had enough. I left, went back to freelancing as a producer, video guy, whatever. Fell in with a few companies and did that for many years, and then back in 2015, I got another job offer to run a post-production house called Raw Digital, ROAR, in Port Melbourne. And I did that for 5.5 years, still producing as well, but COVID put a stop to that, and unfortunately the position was made redundant. And that takes us up to date with work.
Where you are.
Yeah.
And are you also doing things outside of production and media and communications?
I have made an effort to help the Holocaust Centre wherever possible with my camera over these years. In fact, I did... you've heard of March of the Living, I presume?
Of course, yes.
I did 10 March of the Livings as a voluntary video guy.
OMG.
Yeah, OMG, all right. But even more important there, we did a lot of... Other than going on March Living to Poland and Israel, I always made a plan with some of the other people there to go a bit earlier to Europe, and we did side trips, and we went to the Ukraine and Belarus and southern Russia and places all over Eastern Europe there, and wherever we could find a mass grave or a memorial, we would video it. And so I have a collection which I've donated to the Holocaust Museum of the sites, the memorials, the mass graves, and that from all over Eastern Europe. I think well over 100 sites that I've given that footage to the JHC to use. So I've done that, and
your grandparents would be proud.
Yeah, I think so. Because recently, one of my cousins found a family photo. I'm getting it restored at the moment. It shows my grandmother at the age of about 5 with her grandfather.
Wow.
So, and the whole extended family. So there's about 30 people in the shot. I'm getting it restored. But it just proves to me that there is that link. That link is not, not fallacious or whatever. There is a tangible link back to Poland, going back
Absolutely.
to the 1800s, even earlier, because that was my grandfather's grandfather. My grandmother's grandfather. So, you take the 80 years plus 80 years, it's 160 years off where we are today. So,
Really?
Yeah.
And for those people that aren't familiar, March of the Living is a hugely emotional experience.
Yeah, it is.
And it's not just Jewish people,
No.
but it's
You can't
Christians.
you can't help but get emotional when you go on an education tour like that, and you see the horrors.
Just
of the
describe
camp.
it briefly.
Well, the kids, they were taken on a trip to Poland, and to commemorate the Shoah, they would get to Auschwitz on a certain day for the big commemoration ceremony. But before that, they would visit places like Majdanek.
And actually
Auschwitz.
walk a good park apart.
Yes, definitely walk. The actual March of the Living Day is a walk from Birkenau to Auschwitz to Birkenau, and then partake in the ceremony. Became a bit too big and a bit too American. A lot of noisy young American children, you call them that, hijacked the event a few years. But there are a lot of people do respect it. And one of the peak years we were there was
We're talking thousands.
thousands. 5,000 people marched on one of those peak years between 2004 2014 when I went those times 10 times. And I also went along with me, Emmanuel Santos, a fantastic photographer, came as well and documented it.
The 10th year is still as impactful as the first time you went? Or?
Yes and no. I think I lost it a bit after about 6 or 7 trips.
Yeah.
Why am I here? Why am I doing this again? Because it was very exhausting.
But I imagine there'd be very different people each year.
Oh yeah, the kids. Yeah, the kids. Sometimes you get a batch that would just gel and be very intelligent. You want to engage all the time. Other times you got absolute rat bags. I mean, it happens in any circumstance. But
I'd love you to put together a March of the Living over 10 years. Just put together a documentary.
Well, I've left it all to somebody else to do because I've donated all the footage to the Jewish Holocaust Centre, and they've promised to have some form of permanent AV set up once the new building's finished.
I don't know your wife, Rosie,
Yes.
but from what you've said, she sounds like a really traditional Jewish girl.
Well, yes, she's a champion.
And the fact that you've been able to stay married for over 30 years
She's tolerated me, yes.
Makes her even more so.
I have to be careful what I say here.
No, it's a very special thing to be married for that long and not be looking to get divorced now. Now, I'm presuming you're not looking to get divorced.
No,
it sounds like you've really created a wonderful life together.
Yeah.
How did you meet her and how did you know she was
I think
the one?
she had the eyes on me. I think it was the full reverse. I was sharing a house in Paran, and the sister of the guy I was sharing with was a friend of Rosie. She came to the house one day, and the conversation goes to her girlfriend, "I'm going to marry that guy one day," and
Wow.
and that's what happened. And our courtship and our courtship didn't it was quick. It was 6-9 months, something like that. And one afternoon we said to each other, "We might as well get engaged."
Were you thinking of getting married before? Because you were 30, so.
Yeah.
You were no longer a Jinge Bucher. So was that on your mind? Or were you thinking of it?
Friends were getting married around that time, and the same sort of circumstances. Yeah, 30 was a good age, and got engaged at 30, married at 31. And
Kids, how quickly
Natalie
after?
and Samantha came 3 to 4 years after. Those
Really
girls,
nice.
they
I
went
would
to Mount Scopus, those two girls.
Yeah, I would say you're really lucky that she found you because a lot, especially the type of life you were living.
Very unusual for a spouse to, not be part of, say, married to a lawyer or a doctor. I was away a lot. I travelled a lot. A lot of plans got ruined. I had to work, had to go interstate, trips away, whatever, on a very regular basis. The joke in the family was, how's the family in Sydney? The kids would also ask, how's the Sydney family? But it was we did all right.
I don't imagine your mindset back when you're in your even late 20s, even though friends were getting married, was about, I better start looking for someone, or I'm sure you dated a lot, even though you were travelling. I mean...
I had a few flings, but not many.
It's because nobody else decided, okay, he's got what I want as a husband.
I don't think they wanted a traveller, as much as Rosie put up with it. She tolerated it well, but she likes her independence too, so it worked out well. But maybe, I don't know, the girls didn't suffer from me being away. I mean, I've always been a very conscious father, and
have they followed in your footsteps at all, or?
Well, both of them are teachers. The younger one, Samantha, is probably more into the media side of things. She was a dancer for years, choreographer. Had worked at all the dance schools. The kids love her and all that. Natalie was exercise and Natalie don't go well together. Although she does, if she's listening to this, she's a good girl that she goes to gym every day or two.
I'm not a gym person either. It's the last place I want to go.
Yeah, no, they're good, but Samantha's husband's very musical, so they do a lot of things together. Yeah.
Very nice. And really, that's what you want. But when you say, you used to travel a lot, you used to this a lot, you used to that a lot, your wife, the really important things are more about character and more about the inner integrity and the inner way you think about things generally. And I think that's what attracts people to each other. They see the good in each other and they see all the things they like.
Well, opposites attract, they say. So it's like, I know. Yeah, I think I have a fairly reasonable social conscience. I don't tolerate crap much anymore.
That's a good thing.
And bullshit that you see and hear every day.
But I've got to, just for a bit of feedback as well, you have about you a very more positive, alive kind of nature and air. And then even in the way you speak to people, which I've noticed on the few times that we've been together, you have an innate kindness and caring. And they're really wonderful qualities that Rosie was lucky to find.
She certainly was.
Yes.
Please remind her, Lily.
No, big fan. No, you.
Thank you. No, thanks. It's important to be respectful of whatever they're coming from. I learnt a lot of that at university. I don't know if I learnt so much of that at school. Caulfield Grammar was a boys' school. There was a bit of bullying, all that sort of stuff. I did what I had to do to get through. But I found my way at uni, and when I had to mix with real people,
Yeah.
And I ended up on the student union there. I ended up as university president.
Yeah.
78, 79.
And taking on those kinds of roles says a lot about you and your character and who you are. So you've always had a good sense of self and a confidence, because that's the big thing with kids, is confidence.
Yes, I used to turn this terrible shade of red. My cheeks would give away. I was no good playing poker, because if I had a good hand, my cheeks would go bright red, and with the red hair, it was not a good look. So
you had red hair?
I did.
Oh, wow!
Flaming ginger red.
Wow.
For many years, right through to my 20s. And then back in then, you had those terrible haircuts, or you didn't even have haircuts back then. Your hair was long and buffy, and oh god, how people could wear hair like that. But yeah, no, it was flaming red.
And Sion, what else do you want to do now that you're? I won't even ask how old you are, but you've sort of.
I'm 66, 67 in August. What do I want to do? If I hadn't have been made redundant at the work I was at a few years ago, I would have loved to have stayed there another few years, and then around the age of 69, 70 would have actively sought retirement. But I'm still working. I play bridge. Okay, I have a good set of friends, obviously. I'm not a sports person per se. I don't really worry about the football too much or the cricket. I enjoy watching every now and again.
But you also really like the work you do as well.
Yeah, I do, and I volunteer my time if video's needed, and I help out where I can. With the camera. Man with a camera.
And with the Jewish community, other than J-Air?
Well, I did a lot with the JCCV back in, say, 2012 through 2016. I got one of their certificates, contribution to the community service certificates. Thank you very much. So I did a lot of camera work and provided cameras for when they needed it. Then they haven't asked me in recent years, but that's okay. I did a bit for Jewish Care. I did a bit for Emmy Monash. I've done the rounds.
And for yourself, is there a project that you'd like to do or put together? Something that you might have been thinking about over the years, either to do with family or something that you've seen?
To be honest, no, not really. But I will pursue making short films. I've made quite a swag of short films.
I'm happy to hear you say that because I've got a bunch of projects I can now talk to you about.
Rosie says we should make a feature film. Samantha could write it, she could act in it, the other one could dance in it.
Perfect.
A family feature film.
Tell the girls to write it.
God. I don't know about that. No, at the moment I'm just in limbo land with work, so we'll see what happens.
Can you relax and just enjoy?
Well, I do
a
lot of watch probably too much television, but there's so much to watch with all the streaming channels now. Rosie runs this Facebook site called Seriously.
Oh, right.
That's hers with 8,000 followers now. So she's always posting about shows. I'm forever watching the first episode of a particular story. Never get to see the second, third or more episodes of a particular show. I think this week alone we started 5 new series. I've only watched one episode of each.
I know time is the big thing.
But I think, look, I really want to see the station become self-sufficient. The funding model's got to change. We've got to provide radio opportunities for those that want it. We've got to continue to do that. I want to expand the radio into television in a way, not taking away from what Henry Greener does with the shtick, but offer television services within it. I'd love to see it get relocated to the Jewish Arts Quarter, which is going to come along in the next few years in Selwyn Street.
That just makes total common sense.
Yes, absolutely. They're the plans for the station. And
is your brother back here in Australia?
Both brothers, yeah. One lives in Sydney, one lives in Noosa, up in Queensland. He's been there for like 20 years, 30 years.
Nice. And you make sure you speak to each other regularly?
Yeah. Well, with all families, you have one that you talk to a lot, one you talk to a little bit. The one in Sydney, we talk a lot. Yeah. I think it's because of our same industry. He rings me about what camera should I use. I ring him about how something should be edited or written. So we have a collaboration that way. And I'm sure that if he had been in Melbourne, we would have had a production company together.
Right.
Yeah.
So look, I want to really thank you for taking the time because I've been asking you to do this for a very, very long time.
Didn't we? Thank you.
We actually did. When you have an intention, it actually comes through. But you also epitomise what a wonderful normal life can be after the war, because what your parents and grandparents went through and then coming to Australia, the dream was for the kids not to experience hardship and not to experience trauma. So you've obviously lived that. And
look, as much as my my grandmother and her two sisters were touched by having to leave Bialystok, and obviously must have left cousins behind and elderly people behind, was never really discussed that I can remember. And on the other side, they came to Australia in 1925. So on my dad's side, so they were very Anglicized, or whatever the word is, before the war.
Very lucky.
But the very left wing, my uncle stood as the socialist candidate against Prime Minister Menzies in 1956 in the seat of Higgins. Yeah.
But left wing is not what it used to be.
No, that's right. Well, he was communist candidate. That's because that's what that was in those days.
My grandparents were raging communists.
Yeah.
They actually left Poland to go to Russia. When they heard that the Russians were coming, they went early. And they very quickly found out.
But they were on that side. They were very much a mixture of capitalist / communist, because there was no. They made money, and they did okay for themselves. That side of the family. Yeah.
You know what? Just as you were saying that, I think that's the problem of the communists today. Once they make money, they made money because they said they were communists, so they have to keep the facade up, but they actually become exactly the opposite.
I know, crazy. You probably came across my uncle when you had to at the fish market, probably when he used to be a card player.
They were wonderful people. Yeah. Those old white Jewish men were just the salt of the earth, and God bless them. Sion, thank you very much. I love your vision for J-Air going forward as well. And
thanks, Lily.
Thank
When's
you.
this show? I can't remember when your time slot is. It's
Thursdays, 2 o'clock.
I'll have to tune in.
Live.
That's tomorrow.
That is tomorrow.
I've got my school 50-year reunion dinner tomorrow night. I can't believe this.
OMG.
I know, from Caulfield Grammar. That'll be an interesting exercise. I haven't seen any of those guys for 50 years, so...
We should have done this interview tomorrow, but then I wouldn't have had it for the show.
I could be very angry, who knows?
Well, as you know, I lived away for over 20 years, and the biggest shock for me coming back was seeing people I used to know and what they look like now, because I didn't feel that old, but I must look similar to them. Yes. But it should be fun. Do you remember a lot of people from there?
Having looked at all the photographs that we've put an audio-visual thing together, I remember that guy, quite a random selection. But unfortunately, I don't think of the 120 students, I think only about 40 or 50 are coming tomorrow night, so we'll see.
Enjoy.
Thank
Are
you.
you also filming?
No. Please don't even suggest that to me.
Thanks, Sion.
Okay.
All the best.
Thanks, Lily.
There we go. Now I just need to check that we recorded it, and we'll all